Hey guys, long time no see. I know it's been a while since I made a video on this channel. I've been kind of just in the world of Donkey Kong and just playing that game nonstop, playing Mario Kart World nonstop and making content on my main channel, Nintendo Land. But you guys are here and obviously watching this video for today's topic because I'm about to rant. Of course, that's what I do here if this is your first time. I just kind of sit on camera and I rant and show you gameplay as I rant. And today I'm ranting about Donkey Kong because I have a take that well, I'm not going to say I guarantee you that I never had an intention to make a video about this because I didn't think in any chance was this going to be an opinion that I formed. But I'm here to say, without a shadow of a doubt, that I think Donkey Kong Bananza is better than Mario Odyssey. And like a lot better. So you don't have to worry about spoilers here. I'm only showing gameplay of like the first handful of worlds, stuff that we've already seen in trailers and things. But yeah, I'm just going to sit here and rant about it because, yeah, that's what we do here on Nintendo Land. And it's me giving you my straight up opinions, uncut, so if I mess up, I mess up. If I stutter over a word, I stutter over a word. It is what it is. But yeah. We got to talk about Donkey Kong Bananza because I just finished the entire game. Once again, if I do dive into any late game spoilers, it'll be way towards the end of this video, and I'll put up like a thing on the screen just in case you guys don't want to see that stuff yet. But I don't even know if I'm going to dive into that yet. We'll see where I go. But right now, no spoilers, just me, casually talking about the game. But I have always been a huge Super Mario Sunshine fan. It's always been one of my favorite video games from Nintendo, one of my favorite Mario games of all time. It's a different feeling. It's a different style of game. It feels like a different universe of Mario. And I love everything that game did. Of course, it's not perfect, and I can recognize that. And I feel like a lot of my love for it comes from nostalgia. But still, I love Mario Sunshine. But Mario Odyssey, I just, straight up said immediately, this is just an overall better game than Sunshine. Mario Odyssey is amazing. It's one of the best experiences I've ever had from a Nintendo game. And I know a lot of people still have problems with the Odyssey, with the, overly abundant, easily defined moons. And, the fact that it's just, not as good or not as well structured as past 3D Mario games. Like the missions feel a little weaker. So I can see why some people have some complaints, but I still think Odyssey is like a 10 out of 10 personally, or at least a 9 out of 10. But obviously, we knew that Donkey Kong Bananza was going to be a kind of spiritual successor to Odyssey. It's made by the Odyssey team. It's like a branched off team from Odyssey. And there's just Odyssey, formula and DNA everywhere in Donkey Kong Bananza. It's everywhere. You can see it in the characters. You can see it in the menus, the sound effects, the way the game is structured, the worlds, the levels. Like, it's so Odyssey coded, it's insane. But even with that said, Donkey Kong Bananza, in my opinion, is way better than Odyssey. And I didn't think I'd say that, you know what I mean? Now, granted, I think both of these games, I'm just going to go ahead and give you my opinion right away. I think both of these games are straight up a 9 out of 10. I think they both are. I don't know my exact score for Donkey Kong yet, but I can definitely see them both being a 9 out of 10, which is strange to say one is way better than the other, but they're both 9s. I think they both have problems in their own right. But I feel like Donkey Kong just does the concept of what Odyssey was trying to do better, if that makes sense. Yeah, let's just start off. I think the movement feels just as good as Odyssey. The worlds are just as vibrant and fun. I don't know how to once again, this isn't a structured video. I'm just kind of ranting here. So what I'll do is I'll compare piece by piece with each game and just kind of talk about it like that and what I enjoy more from each game. So the worlds. Let's start off with the worlds. The worlds in Donkey Kong Bananza, I find myself more interested in. I love the concept of digging deeper into the ground, and it felt more like a surprise seeing the worlds that I would come up on. Where Mario Odysseys didn't quite surprise me all that much outside of, but once again, the Metro Kingdom was shown off right away. So that was a cool one, but it wasn't like a big surprise for me or did anything super, super unique. The Luncheon Kingdom had some cool polygonal food and stuff, and the Ruined Kingdom looked like it was going to be awesome, but it was only there for a boss fight. Where I feel like every single layer in Donkey Kong Bananza has a purpose. Even the ones that don't give you Bananza transformations, every single layer has a purpose, and it has a really cool, unique theme to it. Yeah, I think I love the worlds way more than Donkey Kong Bananza. Donkey Kong Bananza even has one world that, once again, I'm not going to talk about here, but it has one world that I think is truly my favorite 3D platforming world that I have seen so far from Nintendo. Like, it's pretty much everything that I've wanted in a world, and it's done so incredibly well. I don't really have that from Mario Odyssey. I love New Donk. Like my friend asked me the other day, like, what's your favorite kingdom from Mario Odyssey? I'm like, I really don't know. They're all good, but none of them really stood out to me, if that makes sense. Like there wasn't a specific kingdom that made me say, oh, now that's awesome. Like that I would have never even imagined something like that. You know, it's just like your forest, your beach, your desert. You know, you're not really getting anything super, super wacky. And like I said, Luncheon Kingdom is as wacky as it gets, which is weird that all the other kingdoms play it pretty safe in Mario Odyssey. Like even like a lakeside kingdom, you know what I mean? Like snow. It's just stuff that you would expect from, you know, any type of biome in any game. But yeah, I think Donkey Kong's did more to, you know, stretch the limits of what could be down there. You know, the fact that you're digging into the earth, each layer could be something completely different. And I love the world so much more in Donkey Kong Bonanza. And I found myself always on the edge of my seat seeing what's next, including the end, which even adds to that more with the world design, which is phenomenal. The best ending I've ever experienced in a Nintendo game, and maybe even in a video game ever. It was that good. Once again, if I get into that, I'll talk about that at the very end of the video. But let's talk about the gameplay. I feel like this is where it's kind of hard because Donkey Kong Bonanza is very different than Odyssey with the gameplay because Mario Odyssey is about platforming. It's about tough platforming challenges, whether you're a captured enemy or an object or just Mario. It's about completing objectives and platforming challenges with Mario's skill set in hand. Donkey Kong Bonanza has lots of moments of platforming and, you know, also those same things like, you know, skilled platforming, climbing, stuff like that. But I feel like it works better with Mario. I feel like Mario's platforming is just too perfect. Like, Donkey Kong, I had some issues clinging to walls too much, or, you know, the platforming just didn't feel right, or he'll slip off platforms, or some of the transformations didn't work the way Nintendo wanted them to. Like the zebra transformation, for instance, was a little wonky and finicky at times, where I feel like it would just keep running when I wanted him to stop, or I felt like I was kind of out of control of Donkey Kong with some of the platforming challenges and some of those bonus rooms. The bonus rooms are great, but I felt like the best for Donkey Kong to control when it came to platforming was the 2D levels. I felt like he felt literally like butter, and in every little movement that I made, I know that I did correctly. You know what I mean? Like I know that it did exactly what I wanted him to do. Where there were some areas where I was trying to 3D platform, roll, jump, or climb up and things, and it just, I don't know. Sometimes I would just have an awkward, wonky feeling with the game. I don't know, but I feel like when it comes to platforming, Mario's gameplay, core-to-core, moment-to-moment gameplay was better for me. Although this one wasn't bad though. Like Donkey Kong Bonanza's core gameplay is digging. And at first I thought we'd just be digging endlessly, trying to find stuff that's just, you know, buried underground and not being that much fun. But there's so many areas and hidden caverns and caves and stuff that you'll find. You're never just digging blindly in a side of a mountain, because you can use his sonar clap in order to find out where things are. So I just found myself running around the entire world, just slapping the ground using my sonar to find out where things were hidden. Then I would dig for that specific thing. And when I dug, most of the time there was like some underground, you know, like I said, underground cavern or cave that, you know, had a banana. So as far as the gameplay goes, I think I do prefer Odyssey's, you know, capture mechanic platforming to get to the moon compared to Donkey Kong's digging, punching, kicking to get to the banana. With that said, let's move on to the actual missions. I think collecting the banana or the Banandium gems is a lot more fun than collecting power moons. Yes, I do agree that some power moons just felt pointless. They were just in the ground and you just had a ground pound, or, you know, it was just sitting somewhere that you just picked it up, or you just wall jump over here. Oh, there you go. There's a moon. They were just literally handing them out. It's the same way with Donkey Kong Bonanza, but I feel like you have to work a lot harder for these moons. I feel like just because something is in the ground, you're not just going to ground pound, it's going to pop out the ground like in Odyssey. You got to actually dig for it, look for it, find it, you know, actually go mining for these things. So you actually have to work a lot for these bananas. And it definitely does feel like each Banandium gem that you get, you did some sort of work to get. You know, it doesn't feel like any of them are handed to you. Now, there's shops where you can, you know, once again, like Odyssey, pay for them. And there's like a little route that you can just feed gold in order to get 3 Banandium gems from each world. And there's a lot. There's a lot of gems. I don't know exact number, but it's just as, you know, just as crazy as Odyssey's. So, but however, I did find looking for those moons, or looking for those bananas, to be more fun than looking for the moons, at least for me. Now, something else that I think Odyssey might have the upper hand on slightly is boss battles. I can't really tell still. I don't know. Maybe Donkey Kong does. They're very, very close. I don't think the boss battles in any of these two games are that great. I think a lot of them are pushovers. You can beat them really, really quick. I like how the boss battles in Donkey Kong Bonanza has health bars, and it's not just, 3 phases. Even though some of the bosses, even though there's a health bar, it's clearly 3 phases that you'll fight them in. The first half of Donkey Kong Bonanza's boss battles are a literal joke, and I can't really say that about Odyssey. Odyssey's bosses stay pretty consistent throughout, the beginning, middle, and even parts of the end, where they're like 3-hit bosses, and you'll get the gist. You'll use an Odyssey capture, but with Bonanza, the first half of this game was like some of the most ridiculously easy bosses that we've ever fought in a video game ever, which is weird coming from a Donkey Kong game where its 2D games had some really difficult boss battles. Especially like Tropical Freeze, really difficult boss battles at times and some unique ones. So I was surprised that most of the bosses in the first half of this game was just punching through them. With that said, it does ramp up, and I feel like some of the later game bosses get just as difficult, if not more difficult, than the bonus bosses from Super Mario Odyssey, which were like the harder versions of every boss. So it's hard to say. I think this game has way more bosses than Mario Odyssey as well, even though it reuses some of them. It feels like there's more variety and more boss battles in general. So even though I think Mario Odyssey has more boss highs, like I think there's a couple boss battles in Odyssey that just are, some of the best in the series. Like for instance, I think the Mecha Brutal is one of the best boss battles in Mario ever. However, there's a lot of mid bosses in Odyssey, a lot of them. A lot of them are just very average. So I feel like I'm going to take Donkey Kong's bosses over Super Mario Odyssey's, unfortunately, against Odyssey. But what else do we go on? Let's go music. The music in Mario Odyssey absolutely obliterates Donkey Kong. It absolutely obliterates Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is kind of painful for me because outside of like the Pauline transformation songs that she sings, those are all really good. And like the post-credits, or not the post-credits, but the actual credits theme, the song that Pauline writes and sings, the actual level music is so non-memorable. Like, I can't remember anything outside of the Lagoon layer. The Lagoon layer has some beautiful music that reminds me of Donkey Kong Country. But the rest of the layers sound very boring. It's just more ambient, And of course, the very end of the game has some callback music, which is really, really good. But once again, it's kind of like remixes and remasters of old music. So I'm like, I don't know, I feel like almost every single kingdom in Mario Odyssey had some sort of, catchy music with some incredible themes. Like Cascade Kingdom, for instance, is one of the greatest themes I've heard from a Nintendo game. So I think I'm going to give it to Odyssey when it comes to music, which just makes me so mad because Donkey Kong is known for music. Where was David Wise at? You tell me Nintendo couldn't hire David Wise, the Donkey Kong Country composer, to do Donkey Kong Bonanza? Definitely was missing something with the music and the soundtracks. And there were some areas like the jungle area where I was like, okay, they're not hitting the mark with the music. But what else do we got? Collection. There's a lot of collectibles in both of these games. Donkey Kong Bonanza has fossils. It has Banandium gems. That's about it. Mario Odyssey has purple coins, and it has power moons. So who has the best collection? I feel like it's more fun to collect things in Donkey Kong Bonanza. I really do. It might be harder, but I feel like just, finding fossils, digging for them, punching them out of things, and finding like different rarity of fossils. There's like a normal, a hard, and like one super rare one in each world. I loved finding these fossils, and they even had like a little menu where you can look at them and get a little description about them, which I thought was really, really cool. So that's why, personally, I was a really big fan of, the Collectathon and Donkey Kong Bonanza. It felt like a rare game also. A lot of this felt like I was playing a Banjo-Kazooie game with all the characters and their big eyes and stuff and all the little pieces to collect and stuff. It really just felt like a spiritual successor to Banjo-Tooie or Banjo-Kazooie. But Mario Odyssey's purple coins were okay. I felt myself just kind of dreading looking for them a lot of the time. You needed a specific capture and you just needed to see things. Where Donkey Kong, you could just dig and punch through things, and you even have a sonar to help you find them. Where I feel like just searching a giant kingdom for a very small purple coin got pretty annoying. So having that sonar ability is very helpful. Also, not to mention that you can actually buy maps for these fossils and for these Banandium gems. This was also kind of a thing in Odyssey, I think, with the parrot, the talking to parrot, where you could also find out, location of some power moons and the location of, I think, even some purple coins you could. But I don't know. Personally, I never felt like it worked that well. I remember looking at the map for Power Moons, and like sometimes the moon wasn't there because of some stipulation. I don't know. It just felt like wonky. Where in Bananza, I feel like it's very clear. You know, here's a map. You know, where it marks the gym, you're going to be able to find it if you just dig in that area. Of course, there's difficult ones that I still can't figure out how to get yet. Along with, like I said, the fossils that are hidden everywhere, and there's a lot of fossils, but there's also a counter for each world for you to find, so it makes looking for them, you know, less stressful to know, like, hey, how many am I missing, you know? And you also find the maps organically, which is awesome. You don't have to go out and buy maps or anything like that. If you're just digging in the ground, opening chests, you'll find a bunch of maps along your adventure. So if you absolutely need help finding something, you can always just buy one from the shop, which you'll probably have a lot of gold anyways if you just spent time just digging through and, you know, finding important things. But yeah, I just felt like also as somebody with extreme OCD, this game was maybe meant for me because it almost like calms me to be able to punch everything and look for everything and dig through everything. So I think it's just a very satisfying game. That's like the word to describe Donkey Kong Bananza is just satisfying. It's satisfying to punch the different terrain, hear the sound effects that it makes. The rock makes a crunch, the grass makes a crackle. There's some layers later on, like I said, one of my favorites that has some material that just sounds so incredibly cool to hear. And like I said, maybe the second part of this, I'll dive into what I'm talking about. But dude, oh my gosh, Donkey Kong Bananza left me just speechless. Let's talk about the endings. Actually, no, I want to say that for the end, because if I'm going to dive into that, I want to really, really dive into that. What else do we got? What about the characters and the villains? Without going into the ending of the game, of course, the main characters being Void Crew, or Void Co., led by Void Kong. He's cool. I see a lot of people online love the heck out of Void Kong, and I don't understand necessarily why. He kind of just reminds me of any bratty villain that we've had before. You know what I mean? He reminds me of just the Brutals. That's what they all remind me of, just, you know, variants of the Brutals. They're better than the Brutals for sure. I felt like the Brutals were kind of one-dimensional. You saw them, they had some little banter, you'd kill them, they'd go away, and then they would reappear later on, because that's their roles, just to be like little Koopaling nuisances. I still think I'd prefer the Koopalings over the Brutals. They didn't leave a lasting impression on me. Neither did Mama Brutal or anything like that. But I definitely do like Void Co. a little bit more. But even with that said, Void Kong didn't really do much for me. I'm very glad that there was a special ending, but Void Kong didn't really do much for me most of the game. He's just kind of like this angry little imp monkey, you know what I mean? There's not much else to his character. He's angry, he's mean, and he wants to get what he wants, no matter if it comes at the cost of throwing away his own crew. But how many times have we seen bosses like that? I guess I want a villain with like an evil mastermind plan, or somebody that's just like so unbelievably evil that you're like, dang, this is a crazy character. But I didn't really feel like that with any of these characters. But at the same time, you know, Mario Odyssey was just Bowser again. So I wasn't getting anything super unique with Odyssey's enemies. You know, the Brutals were pretty mid, and, you know, it was just Bowser all over again. But, yeah. But I'm going to take Bananza simply for the ending of the game. And like I said, I'll talk about that when I get there. It's just that good. But yeah, I think Bananza definitely did it better with a twist, and a special little thing and a little secret. But yeah. What else do we have to talk about? I don't even know. Costumes? Mario Odyssey blows Donkey Kong and Pauline out the water. Donkey Kong can get his fur changed with different colors. He can get different overalls and different ties. Pauline can just get different costumes altogether. Now, outside of Pauline, Donkey Kong's costumes weren't that interesting. It's cool to have different colors, and I like what they did with it. But I kind of wish Donkey Kong could have actual costumes. Mario Odyssey, Mario has like actual costumes. He can put on like football helmets and pads and, you know, different hats and stuff. I think there's different hats. At least I unlocked the mining helmet, but so far throughout the entirety of the game and even beating the bonus ending, I haven't seen anything with hats. So I don't know if now I can unlock them since I beat the bonus ending, because that now just gave me the option to put on a mining hat. But it's not in the base game, at least when you're playing just, you know, the regular story. You got to complete everything to get that unlocked. And I just wish there was just more costumes for him to decorate him in different ways instead of it just being, you know, fur cosmetics. So I will give that one to Super Mario Odyssey for having really good cosmetics and stuff like that. Also, I want to give Mario Odyssey another point. Donkey Kong Bananza does not have any bonus worlds or really too many bonus levels. There are a lot of challenge levels that are tied to the Bonanza Elders, and they are very challenging, which I know I'm going off the rails here to another topic real quick. As far as difficulty, I think Bonanza takes it as well, and I'll get into that in a second. But as far as these bonus, challenge stages and stuff, there's no real, surprise world, which surprised me because at the end, there's something that's so, duh, that should have been in this game. I just couldn't believe it wasn't included. But once again, I'll get into that at the end. So yeah, I think Odyssey takes the cake with allowing you to explore the Mushroom Kingdom, two extra sides of the moon, even though they just worked as bonus levels. But I think that extra Mushroom Kingdom was something that just took it over the top and was a really fun surprise to have. And Bonanza didn't have anything like that, which is kind of disappointing. Difficulty. Donkey Kong Bonanza is more difficult than Mario Odyssey. And dare I say, it's a lot more difficult than Mario Odyssey. Some of the final bonus rooms I genuinely think are some of the hardest challenges that I have ever had to face throughout any Mario game, or even lots of the 2D Donkey Kong stages. There's some in here that are brutal. You can make it harder for yourself by just limiting the amount of lives that you have. But the final challenge in this game compared to Super Mario Odyssey's very last challenge as well, I think Donkey Kong's is way more brutal. And it's not for the best reasons. It's once again to that platforming thing where I feel like Donkey Kong's controls and the way that some of his Bonanza transformations work, they don't feel as smooth. And I feel like a lot of the times I'm dying just because of poor mechanics. So where Mario Odyssey's just felt tight. And when I died, I knew that I did something wrong. But I do think Donkey Kong Bonanza is harder than Super Mario Odyssey, a lot harder. I mean, dude, I think a 5-year-old could beat Mario Odyssey from start to finish if they weren't collecting everything. But with that said, I think that's pretty much everything on the baseline of the game that I wanted to talk about. I'm trying to think real quick if there's anything else. I don't think there is. So let's get into some of the spoiler territory. So I'll put it up on the screen. We're going to talk about spoilers here. I'm also going to show gameplay to one of my favorite worlds in the game as well as I talk about it. So if this is where you want to stop, I'll pretty much just say, yes, I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is indeed better than Super Mario Odyssey because of those reasons. But I think it goes even further why I choose Donkey Kong over Mario, and I'm going to tell you why right here. So this is your last chance in 3, 2, 1. So the one world that I was talking about is the Feast Layer. It's like one of the last ones in the entire game before the final area. And I have not experienced pure joy from a world quite like this one since Super Mario Sunshine. One of my favorite ones was Peanut Park, which is a giant amusement park. You don't see that theme really used too much, but it makes you feel like a kid. There's rides and roller coasters, Ferris wheels, the whole lot, like little food concession stands and stuff. And I always loved the one in Sunshine, but I feel like it just still wasn't used at its best. You know what I mean? There were lots of rides and stuff that you can get on, but they didn't really work right. I know you guys remember the giant ships and stuff that, spun all the way around for some reason, which is weird, like a full 360 around the bar. You could ride on them, but I'm like, what person is riding on this thing? There's not even seats or anything. It's like little platforms. But anyways, this world just felt like it was made to be platformed on or dug into or just broken apart by punching all the scenery and stuff. Oh my gosh. Genuinely, when I saw there was actually concept art that Nintendo posted of this, and I thought it wasn't going to make the game, but when I saw this was actually in the game, I was so stinking excited, man. There's so many different areas that you can explore. Each area has its own little theme of the park. There's a little haunted area with a little mini boss that you can fight. There's a part where you go into a giant grease fryer, and there's french fries and stuff in there as you're riding these little beds of salt, these boats that are flying or floating around on the grease. Oh, it's so good. And there's even a little minecart section where you can ride a roller coaster and throw bombs at stuff, very similar to how you could in Super Mario Sunshine, but this one you could just jump on whenever. There's lots of branching paths, tons of bonus rooms scattered everywhere, collectibles everywhere, a Ferris wheel, a merry-go-round. I mean, they really thought of it all in this world. It was so incredibly well done, and like I said, I did not have a world experience like that in Odyssey. I think the closest was the Metro Kingdom, but even that was shown in tons of trailers in the first revealed trailer, and it was just a big modern New York City. There wasn't anything super, super unique about it, but man, I just immediately fell in love with the one from Donkey Kong Bonanza. Feast Layer is awesome, but let's talk about the ending of the game. It blows Mario Odyssey's ending out of the water, man. And I heard people saying how good it was going to be. I just was not mentally prepared and expecting this, man. The ending to Donkey Kong Bonanza means so much to Donkey Kong fans, and just such a great ending really regardless. You know what I mean? The ending is like 3 to 4 hours long of a ending ramping up to the finale. Like, it's just that long of a conclusion to the game. You'll start off, trying to make your way to the core. You get to this area where it looks like you're at the core until you realize that, it's a fake out because it's actually freaking King K. Rool that comes back from the dead. It's just like, he's finally back. He even has story lore that he's been down here trapped this whole time and imprisoned by the Banandium root. It's such a crazy reveal as he punches Void Kong away. And I was so happy because I wasn't, like I said, a huge fan of Void Kong, but when they revealed King K. Rool, it just shows you why he's such a good villain. He's just so evil and maniacal, and like you could just tell he just wants to kill Donkey Kong. Like he says it multiple times, "You filthy apes! I just want to," like, what I mean? He just wants to kill him, and he goes through multiple different phases of not giving up to kill them. You'll first start off by chasing him deep underground in this like minecart section. It has beautiful music that calls back to past games and stuff as you're on the minecart. And as you go deeper and deeper, it gets darker and darker. And then you start seeing members of the Kremlin crew and how pretty much every enemy that you've been fighting in the game, it builds like little in-game lore because all the enemies and fossil creatures that you've been fighting, they're just fossilized versions of the Kremlin crew because they've been down here so long. Some of them died off. It's so awesome to see stuff like that. The Neckies are here. You have the Kremlin with the critters and even the claptraps and the army armadillos, and it just goes on and on and on. They filled this game full of fan service. Shoot, even the Zinger bees were here. It's just so good. And to see like multiple sections where you fight each individual group of Kremlin enemies before you eventually take the minecart all the way down to the very lowest part into the core. You fight King K. Rool, and there's a lot of references to Donkey Kong Country's boss fights with him. He even has a giant blunderbuss, or blunderbust, whatever it's called. I don't know which one to put the L on. But yeah, it's just so cool. And then it's just like, you think it's over, you fly up to the surface, and nope, it's not over yet, because King K. Rool wakes up and he chases you to a part 2 where he's trying to fly into you as you're flying upward out of the cave, and you can throw, pieces of debris at him to knock him back, and you finally fly out, and there's a phase 3 still, where you have to pretty much make your way all the way to him, where he flies out into the human world and takes over the city, turns it into Kremlin City. It's so good. He feels like a villain from like Batman Arkham City. Like he's like a villain taking over Arkham. It's just, the stuff that they did was just like, it felt like HAL Labs had their hand in this game, because you don't see endings with that much love poured out into them anymore from Nintendo. You really don't. I mean, it's normally like quick wrap-ups, like you beat Bowser and maybe he gets big and then you beat him again and it's over. You can expect the same sort of things. And even from the 2D games, there were no endings. Even as good as Donkey Kong Country was, there were no endings that were like that crazy. This was just a crazy thing to not only bring back a dead character that's been gone for so long and bring him back into the series that people really wanted, but to have a revelation of like, oh my gosh, you were fighting Kremlin crew this entire time in this game. And it's not like, I've seen some people say like they kind of just threw him in there at the end. I don't think so, because they show like his army was there. Like the hints were there. The very first enemy you fight is a crocoid. It shows it. It zooms in on him and shows the stuff dripping down onto him and him waking up. So like, from the very beginning, it gave you hints, and Cranky Kong, gives you hints as well from the very beginning. It definitely was not shoehorned in there. If you paid attention to, the scenery and kind of the hints that some people gave, you could tell from the very beginning that they were, ramping up for some type of, surprise. And I love having plot twists like that in the story. Mario Odyssey didn't really have any plot twists. It was just kind of like, the whole time Bowser's trying to marry Peach, and you got to go save her. And that's how it works. You know what I mean? I guess the biggest plot twist was Bowser was wanting to marry Peach on the moon. But I mean, besides that, there wasn't any like special character or secret thing to the story. So yeah, I love that with my stories. I love seeing plot twists. It makes me so happy. So they obviously had a pretty big plot twist here. And it's one of my favorite endings ever. Seriously. And yeah, there's post-game and stuff. There's stuff that you can do afterwards, like I said, with the bonus rooms and the bonus challenges. Unfortunately, there's no bonus world, and this is what I said. It just blew my mind that there's no bonus world. You literally go to New Donk City, and you're telling me there's no like New Donk City layer that they had us do, where it's like completely outside. They couldn't have had a bonus layer with New Donk City where we had like a small portion of the city that we could break apart and stuff. And I don't know if it's Nintendo like didn't want us to, beat up buildings and break buildings down. Like, I get it to an extent. So like, I understand why we can't punch and destroy things. We turn into like the game Rampage at that point. But man, it would have been so cool, like maybe there's something to it, like everybody got out of the buildings and let Donkey Kong go crazy, and then you can rebuild it at the end because you know you can reset each layer. So no New Donk City. I was also surprised they didn't even do like, they could have just did like a Donkey Kong's Home or like Home Island or something. Maybe like the island from Donkey Kong 64, where it's just like Donkey Kong's giant head and you can go and like explore some callbacks to the DK64. That'd have been cool, you know, and you can, you know, beat up terrain and destroy stuff there. But no type of callback, which is strange. I really expected there to be some type of bonus world in this game. So that one kind of sadly let me down. Mario Odyssey did pretty good with that. But even with that said, Donkey Kong Bonanza is just a gem. I guess pun intended, Bonandium gems, but it's just such a gem from start to finish, man. The entire time I was playing this game, I was just grinning and smiling ear to ear. This is something that I've also felt very strongly about with Odyssey. Like I said, as soon as I finished Odyssey, I immediately told myself, like, this game is just a masterpiece. But Bonanza, you know, it could be recency bias, you know, maybe just because I just finished the game. Maybe I need to let the game marinate for a couple of years and see exactly how I feel. But I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is indeed better than Odyssey. I think it's just going to come down to, you know, maybe some people rather do pure platforming than, you know, digging and breaking things. But, you know, as somebody who actually found a lot of enjoyment out of it, and like I said, from the beginning, I wasn't huge on this game. From the very first trailer, I thought it looked cool. I thought the digging and, you know, breaking things was going to get old. But I can tell you throughout my over 20 hours of playthrough through the story, plus my extra like 5 hours of extras that I played so far, so around 30 plus hours, I've never once got bored of digging or, you know, just breaking things or punching things. It's just been a blast, you know, from start to finish. I absolutely love Donkey Kong Bonanza, and it's going to go down as probably one of my favorite Switch 2 games for sure, because Mario Kart didn't. I love Mario Kart. I can't even say I love Mario Kart World. I really enjoyed Mario Kart World so far. I like it a lot. I think there's a lot of good, but it did a lot wrong, in my opinion, and still has a lot of issues that need addressed and fixed. But I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to be my Switch 2 game of recommendation for right now, until I see what else Nintendo has in store, because whew, Bonanza is a blast. And you know what? If we got to wait a little while longer for the next 3D Mario, I don't mind, because of how good this game was. So congrats, Nintendo. You guys made a stellar title. Should have been a launch title. I know, I get why you did Mario Kart, but I think Donkey Kong Bonanza as a launch title would have definitely made people really happy, because then they could have came out and had because I guess the rumor right now is there's still going to be a Nintendo Direct sometime this month. I think next week is the last possible time that it could be. So what they could have did is just had, like, you know, Donkey Kong Bonanza launch title, Mario Kart World come out like a week ago, and then boom, they could immediately talk about DLC in that Direct for Mario Kart World, keeping that game alive. But, you know, people are already quitting it. That's a topic for another video. People are already quitting Mario Kart World. I've been seeing it all over the internet. Maybe I'll post that on my main channel. I'm rambling right now. But let me know down below what you thought of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Was it as great of an experience as it was for you as it was for me? Let me know down below. And also, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. This is still a fresh new channel, and I'm trying to get it out there and get some attention towards it. So if you enjoy these type of videos, please make sure you leave a like, subscribe to stay up to date on all things Donkey Kong, Nintendo, Mario in general. And like always, have a blessed day, and I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.